Fridays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm going to talk about some roster moves that the 49ers have made ahead of OTAs. And so the 49ers are looking to open up OTAs and start having practices. And the media is going to start getting out there and checking out what this 49ers 2025 roster looks like. Now, that happens tomorrow. But the 49ers are starting to make moves today. And with that being said, they brought on a new punter. And, of course, it was spoiled on social media by Thomas Morstead himself, the punter, formerly of the New York Jets. He punted a long time for the New Orleans Saints as well. He's been around the league for a long time. And he posted up in front of the giant helmet at Levi Stadium as he took a picture to let everyone know he was very grateful for this opportunity that he was going to have. So the 49ers signed a new punter in Thomas Morstead. But what does that mean for Mitch Wishnowsky? That was the big question. As soon as it happened, everyone wondered, is this a competition thing, right? We've seen the 49ers go and get competition for Jake Moody. Maybe this was a competition thing for Mitch Wishnowsky as well. But that's not the case. The San Francisco 49ers have released Mitch Wishnowsky, their punter that they drafted in 2018. This came as a bit of a surprise because the 49ers have been very fond of Wishnowsky. In 2023, he had a very good season for the 49ers. But, of course, last year was marred by injury. He missed almost all of the offseason. He missed training camp dealing with back and knee injuries. The 49ers paraded all kinds of punters out there to try to get tryouts. They eventually signed someone. Then Mitch came back for the regular season. But it just wasn't as good. Mitch Wishnowsky struggled last season. And, he was consistent in his career. But last year in 2024, he appeared in 9 games. He had 22 punts for 994 yards. That's 45.2 yards per punt. And 11 of his punts went inside the 20-yard line. So this is not what the 49ers signed up for. A former Ray Guy award-winning punter when he was at Utah. They thought that they were going to get a guy that was consistently one of the top punters in the league. And I think there were moments where Mitch Wishnowsky looked like one of those guys. And then other times where it just seemed like a struggle. Now, question marks about why exactly they've moved on from Mitch Wishnowsky, I think, are still there. We'll wait to hear the official word. Maybe Mitch Wishnowsky's back is still bothering him, and he's going to be unable to perform at the level that he needed to perform. That we don't know. But the 49ers have decided that they're going another direction. Special teams coordinator Brant Boyer, he's not wasting any time making sure that he makes things better, no matter who that player is. It is becoming a meritocracy. They don't care who you are, how much money you're getting paid. We're going to improve this football team. We're going to bring in guys that we feel comfortable with what they can do. Tabor Pepper, you're out. In comes John Weeks, a former All-Pro long snapper. More consistency there. Mitch Wishnowsky, you've been a good punter in the past. However, you're dealing with some things. We can't take the chance. We're going to bring in Thomas Morstead, a veteran, and we're going to allow him to improve this special teams unit. They even brought in competition for Jake Moody, and there's already people on Twitter saying, hey, you've already made all the moves when it comes to special teams, getting rid of the long snapper, changing the punter and holder. Maybe it's time to move on from the kicker. And this comes on the heels of information yesterday from Jake Moody stating that he's changed his approach to kicking. He no longer is taking 3 steps to kick, but only 2. He talked about the fact that, yes, doubts did creep into his mind last season when he struggled. And now he feels like he's in a good place. He can't allow that to happen. He has to feel confident from kick to kick. So you're hearing those things about Jake Moody, just as the 49ers have completely changed the battery of special team specialists that are going to be operating around him. It's very interesting. And I want to get more into, who exactly Thomas Morstead is and the other moves that the 49ers have made, because they weren't done there. They also brought in a linebacker as well, a Robert Saleh guy. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you listen on an audio platform, that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, if you feel like it, please give me a 5-star rating. And if you are going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we're into the NBA and NHL playoffs. BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With a large selection of odds on everything from Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So I want to get into Morstead because I do think that this is a remarkable move by the 49ers because they're giving up on a 4th-round draft pick in Mitch Wishnowsky. And a lot of people were very upset in the first place that the 49ers used it on a specialist. But if he would have punted to the degree that they were expecting, it would have worked out. And I know a lot of people are saying you never use a pick that high on a punter. And let's just throw that out the window right now. We got to just talk about what happened. Mitch Wishnowsky is probably not going to be as good as he was in 2023, no matter if he signs for another team or not. I think the back injuries are definitely getting to him. And the fact that a back injury happens, that's usually hard to come back from, no matter what athletic sport you're playing, because your back is kind of the basis for everything. But let's talk about Morstead now that Wishnowsky's translating out. And Brant Boyer is getting in his guy Morstead, and Morstead did punt for him over a couple of stints with the New York Jets. So he's 6'4", 225 pounds. He was selected by the New Orleans Saints in the 5th round at pick 164 overall in the 2009 NFL Draft. Been around for a while. In his 16-year career with the Saints, he was there from 2009 to 2020. The Jets, where he was in 2021 with Brant Boyer, 2023/2024 with Brant Boyer as well. Falcons for a small stint in 2021, Dolphins in 2022. He appeared in 255 games, had 960 punts for 44,944 yards, or a 46.8 average. He pinned teams inside the 20-yard line 352 times with those punts, and he's also punted in 16 postseason games for 60 punts at 2,667 yards, which is a 44.5 average, with 20 of his punts landing inside the 20, and a Super Bowl champion with those New Orleans Saints. So he's punted in the biggest games. He's played in the biggest games. There's no moment that is too big for him. In 2012, he did get a second-team All-Pro. In 2013, he was a Pro Bowl selection after finishing the season with 74 punts that went for 50.1 average, including 20 of them being inside the 20. It's really good. That 50.1 average ranks second in the NFL and first in the NFC among punters in 2012. This is another guy like John Weeks. We talked about him as a long snapper. And now with Thomas Morstead, where you've got a guy that's played at an all-pro caliber level at their position. Now, that 2012 was a long time ago. Can he still play at a high level? Yes, he can. Is he going to play at that level? Probably not. But what you're hoping is that you're going to get a more consistent punt average and a more consistent player in Morstead. But mostly, you're just going to get a healthy player, because that's been one of the concerns when it came to Mitch Wishnowsky. And the 49ers can't afford to go into the regular season with inconsistencies with the punter. They were losing field position last year pretty consistently, and they weren't able to have a punter who could absolutely boom the ball because then that guy couldn't hold for Jake Moody. So they need to make sure they did this, and they got it done. And, they get themselves a really talented player with Thomas Morstead. And now Brant Boyer is almost got his complete battery, right? He got the long snapper that he wanted in John Weeks. He's got a new punter now in Thomas Morstead. He said he's very fond of Jake Moody, so we'll see how that goes. But he also drafted his punt/kick returner as well in Bergen. So you've got kind of Brant Boyer's fingerprints all over the team, and it wasn't done there because the 49ers also signed a linebacker. And this one wasn't a huge shock because it had been mentioned ever since Robert Saleh came to San Francisco, because this guy really just fits what the 49ers, want to do on the defensive side of the ball. And anytime that you have an opportunity to go get somebody, that has a lot of athletic ability, that's played for your defensive coordinator before, it makes sense. And they went out and they got Chazz Surratt, linebacker, that played with the New York Jets just last year. In fact, he was with the Jets from 2022 through 2024. So Surratt is an interesting player. He's 6'2", 233 pounds. He was originally selected by the Vikings in the third round of the 2021 NFL draft. He's been in the NFL for 4 years, including a stop with the Vikings, of course, in 2021. And then since then with the New York Jets in 2022 through 2024. He's played in 41 games, 5 of those starts. He has 19 tackles on defense to go with 18 special teams tackles, and 10 of those special teams tackles were last year. That's the Brant Boyer effect. 49ers needed to get better when it came to special teams, and he's good at playing special teams and helping on kickoff. That's something the 49ers needed. This is a big question mark that they were facing last year with guys like Jalen Graham and Tatum Bethune. So they're making sure they're adding athletes to do this. Now, by signing Chazz Surratt, they did have to make a roster move, and they let go of linebacker DaShaun White. He was released. He had signed with the 49ers last year and was put on the 49ers practice squad. He did appear in one game for the 49ers in 2024, but they move on from DaShaun White and get Chazz Surratt. And this one is a definite upgrade for the 49ers as they get somebody, that Robert Saleh is definitely really comfortable with. Now, part of the reason that he's interesting in Surratt is what he did in college. Now, he's 28 years old right now. He's been in the league for 4 years. But he has been around, especially when it came to what he did in college, because he wasn't always a guy that played linebacker. This is a guy that translated late to playing linebacker. Before that, he was a quarterback at East Lincoln High School, and he threw for over 3,500 yards and 51 touchdowns in his career. But he suffered a ligament injury to his left non-throwing arm his senior year and redshirted at the University of North Carolina. He did play in 7 games in 2017 and had mixed results in that appearance. And so he had to end up changing positions when Sam Howell took over the reins of the UNC's offense, and they switched Chazz Surratt to linebacker in college. He finished as the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, earning first-team all-conference honors after leading the team with 115 tackles, 15 for loss, 6.5 sacks, while intercepting a pass and breaking up 3 others. It's absolutely impressive what he was able to do. And of course, his brother was Chazz Surratt, who played for Wake Forest. But the guy just made a lot of plays for UNC, and that's why a lot of teams were super high on him when he was going to come out of college, because he's a guy that's inconsistent because he doesn't play the position consistently in college. Now he's translated a lot more, so some of those things are a little bit different. But when you're talking about his athleticism, I think that's one of the things that makes him appealing to the 49ers and what he's able to do, within the 49ers defense. You're talking a linebacker 6'2", 230 pounds that runs a 4.58 40. So this is another 4.5 guy. You're adding that to the hyper speed of Nick Martin, D. Winters. You've got, Fred Warner that's a little bit slower than that, but can still run in the 4.6 range. You're getting a lot of hyper athletic linebackers that can run around. He's also a guy that doesn't miss tackles. He only missed 2 tackles all last season, which is something that they really want from a player. Now, when looking at what he did with the New York Jets last year, he didn't play a lot of snaps. He played 137 snaps last year. He had a 72.7 overall PFF grade, which would have ranked 40th. But of course, he didn't play a lot of snaps, so that will kind of bring some things down. He did have 14 tackles last year, which is 109th out of 189 guys that qualified. So that's something to remember as well. When looking at his grades last season for what he excelled at, one of the things he was really good at was coverage. And we kind of talked about that a lot with D. Winters last year. D. Winters also excelled when it come to coverage. Where Surratt struggles a little bit is when it comes to run defense. And so the 49ers are looking at certain types of linebackers that fit their scheme. And when it comes to Surratt, you're looking at a guy that's another guy that's really good in coverage, another will linebacker type individual who runs sideline to sideline and can make some plays. And so he's a fun guy. I think that this is a nice addition to the 49ers linebacker room and a guy I want to see what he can do when he has an opportunity to rush the passer a little bit through blitzes. And you look at the 49ers depth chart at linebacker, and it just took on a little bit of a change with DaShaun White moving on. I think there's an opportunity now for Surratt to move up. So if you were talking about your three starting linebackers potentially being Fred Warner, Nick Martin, and D. Winters, and no matter whether Winters is playing will linebacker or Nick Martin is playing linebackers, that is going to be the presumed starting lineup. You went out in free agency and you signed Luke Gifford. And yes, Luke Gifford is more than likely going to be a backup linebacker for the 49ers with an emphasis on special teams. And I think Surratt can kind of be put in that category as well. Here's where it gets interesting. Guys like Curtis Robinson and Jalen Graham now maybe get pushed down the list a little bit. You're talking about that second unit of three linebackers being Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune, and probably linebacker Surratt. So Chazz Surratt comes in and probably moves a guy like Jalen Graham down. And so your competition steps up. Your third linebacker group is absolutely ridiculously still talented with Stone Blanton, the undrafted free agent. You've got Curtis Robinson, the guy coming off an injury who, would have made the team last year and who knows, could have ended up starting at Sam linebacker during the start of the season. He had a tremendous training camp in preseason until he got hurt. And then Jalen Graham, who the 49ers invested a 7th round pick into when he was coming out of Purdue. It's a impressive linebacker room, and I think that all they did was improve it. So what you're seeing from the 49ers is not just improvements when it comes to special teams, but also when it comes to depth at linebacker, and Surratt adds that. And we'll see what happens when he plays in the system again. The good thing is there is no confusion on what his expectations are playing for this team. There's no adjustment to going in and playing for this 49ers linebacker room. He knows what's expected of him, and he's big, tall, and long. So you've got speed all over the place with the 49ers. I mean, their top four linebackers, none of them run over a 4.6 240. They got sideline to sideline speed with those top four guys. That's if we put Chazz Surratt as a top four linebacker. He's got to beat out Tatum Bethune, who's not a speed guy. He's got to beat out Luke Gifford, who's not a speed guy. But I do think that second unit takes on another look now. They could put Tatum Bethune or Luke Gifford at Mike linebacker. The other one plays Sam, and then Surratt plays Will linebacker once Nick Martin steps up into the starting role. So I think that they've finally got this linebacker room established. And people have been asking, do the 49ers need to go out and potentially get another linebacker? And there have been veteran linebackers that have been mentioned with the San Francisco 49ers over the last, several weeks. And yeah, there are some guys, right? You get a guy like CJ Mosley who played for Robert Saleh. So there is, I'm sure, a potential of that. But you'd prefer to have young guys that are able to run. Now, Mosley can play at such a high level that, yeah, you could place him in there right now. I think it's less likely that the 49ers go with a linebacker that is, like that. I think they're going to go with these guys that are going to be playing, young guys that are going to be stepping in and playing like that. There's still a lot of guys on the open market that they could go get, right? There's still an Eric Kendricks. They fooled around with that idea last year of bringing him in. He had agreed to a contract and he moved on. A guy like Neville Hewitt, who is also another cheap guy who played for the Houston Texans, he fits the scheme. He's another potential option for the 49ers if they need to go veteran. But those are the guys that I think make the most sense for the 49ers if they're still looking. But I think that they might not be looking now. I think the 49ers may have their linebacker core, together. And that's impressive because I do think that the 49ers are not done making roster moves. I think that they're going to continue to tweak and change up this roster as they continue to go through OTAs, as they continue to go through the offseason, as they make moves. And it's not exclusive to defense, but also on offense as well. So we see special teams moves, a couple right here. I think one of them has effects on the defense as well. But I think we're going to see them at other positions as well as they continue to build this football team. And we talked earlier about linebacker. You still got Chazz White out there. He's still available as well. I didn't want to, ignore him. But what other positions could the 49ers still look to add players to? Because they're obviously not done. And we know that the contract of Fred Warner opened up $17 million worth of more cap space. It is rumored, depending on who, which capologist you're looking at, the 49ers have somewhere between, and this is how I'm going to say it, $47 and $52 million in open cap room. Now, with the Mitch Wishnowsky cut, you get $2 million in dead money. It did free up 2025 cap by about $225,000. So you freed up a little bit of money. You definitely had to sign Morstead. So the 49ers spent a little bit of money with Surratt and Morstead. And of course, they have plenty of money to sign. But what positions do they actually go for? I don't think linebacker anymore is a position that they are going to evaluate and look at. But I do think that there's a potential that the 49ers could look at edge rusher. And I say that because they still have question marks when it comes to certain types of edge rushers especially. So when you look at the 49ers roster, and we went through the depth chart of the 49ers defensive ends, you look and you see that they are very talented with Bosa, Mikael Williams, and Gross Matos. But then you have question marks in some category between Sam Okuwanu, Robert Beal Jr., and then after that, you just got Teron Jackson, Jonathan Garvin. There's not a dominant fourth. I think also you could be lacking a pass rush specialist. Now, Mikael Williams may end up being a pass rush specialist. Maybe Gross Matos develops into a guy that consistently wins in that Charles Omenihu Arden key role by moving inside. But I think that edge is still a spot where you can look to find a closer. And I think that that's one of the elements that Robert Saleh likes in his system. You look at the guys that he was able to go draft. He went out and got closers. Yeah, he had to have a Jermaine Johnson to stop the run consistently, but you want to have a guy that can come in and finish. That's why they went out and traded for Hassan Reddick. They wanted a closer, somebody that could come in and finish games on third down. And I think right now it'd be a complete projection to say that Mikael Williams is going to be that guy. Now, Sam Okuwanu showed some ability to pass rush, but he's not a dynamic pass rusher by any stretch. So who is that dynamic pass rusher besides Nick Bosa? And it could be Mikael. It could be Yetur Gross-Matos who steps up. But there are names out there, and these guys are long in the tooth when you're talking about guys that are going to be able to bring pressure off the edge. And that's why they don't make sense probably till the end of training camp to potentially bring in. But if you're looking for a guy that can finish around the quarterback, Von Miller is definitely that guy. Now, you're going to have to take a huge amount of your salary cap space that you would love to roll over into next year where you could really invest in some key players and spend it on Von Miller. So I don't know if financially it makes sense. But when you're talking about a fit for what the 49ers could be looking for, Von Miller would definitely make sense when it comes to adding at that position. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but other players at the position, Matt Judon still available. 49ers could definitely go there. Market value about $4.2 million. Didn't have the best year for Atlanta last year, but it could be the scheme that he's in. They could also just wait until teams continue to cut players and move players around. Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, both would make sense for the 49ers. Zadarius Smith played in a wide 9 already when he was in Cleveland. And then, of course, people have brought up Jadeveon Clowney, and I've talked about how I don't think that is the best motive, or best direction to go. But that is one. Now, the other spot that they could continue to add, I think, is when you look at cornerback. And I think cornerback is still an option because the 49ers are so young at the position. I just did a breakdown over on Patreon of Jacob Robinson. And I think Jacob Robinson's got a real shot to make this team when you look at the depth of the 49ers cornerback room. I think you feel extremely happy with Bernardo Green and with Yammer Lenore. I think after that, that's the question. Is it going to be Upton Stout starting at nickel, or is it going to be potentially Trey Brown starting at corner? That's one of the question marks. Then after that, your depth comes down to a few guys. Saron Neal, who they brought in from Miami, Dallas Flowers. Now, Dallas Flowers, from my research that I did on him, he was an opportunity to start last year for the Indianapolis Colts before he hadn't recovered fully from an Achilles injury that happened in 2023. Then he got moved on from. So this is a move where Gus Bradley went out and brought in one of his guys that he had a lot of faith in and brought him in. And I know he's going to have special teams implications, but I think Dallas Flowers is somebody to keep an eye on as we go through the process. They got Chase Lucas. Then you got Jacob Robinson as somebody that can come in and compete. So I think the 49ers have room to add depth when it comes to cornerback if the right guy is available. And there's still some guys out there. And I know a lot of people have brought up, the fact that they could go with Asante Samuel Jr. The question is, because he's only 25 years old, what's the neck like? And are you going to potentially invest in a guy that has a neck injury and pay him double-digit money when you just drafted Upton Stout, who you expect to start in the next couple years? I think that's a big question mark for what he's able to do. Would you bring in a guy like Emmanuel Mosley, or does he run the risk of becoming a Jason Verrett, where you bring him in, you love the guy, but he's just never able to get on the field? I think those are some question marks, for bringing those guys in. You could go out and get a guy like Stephon Gilmore. He could definitely play out on the edge. I think he's got some potential. Rasul Douglas as well. So I think that there's a chance the 49ers could still address the cornerback position. And it might not be with anyone, that's really known, that basically a big-time player. Maybe they're going to take a shot at somebody, maybe they'll take a shot at a Robert Rochelle, somebody that fits the system, but hasn't really been able to make it happen in the NFL, bring him in to compete. I think that would be very interesting if they could do it. So I do think that cornerback is still an option. I think that defensive end is still an option for the 49ers to go out and evaluate and potentially bring someone in. And I think also I wanted to say wide receiver, and we mentioned it on the last episode because there's so much conversation right now. In fact, I got a text message today with, someone asking me what I thought about the rumors surrounding certain wide receiver position, because they're hearing stuff as well that the 49ers are maybe sniffing around veteran wide receivers. Now, I'm not sure that the veteran wide receivers the 49ers are sniffing around, though, are the names that are out there. I think that that's a little bit too rich, for the 49ers to potentially go after like a Keenan Allen, like is being talked about. I think that is a little bit of a concern. Also, a guy like Amari Cooper. Now, I'm not saying it from a football perspective in the fact that we wouldn't want those guys in San Francisco, because we 100% would. I'm talking about it from a financial point of view, because when you look at what those guys are projected to make, even now on the open market, minus them just coming in extremely cheap, are you going to pay Keenan Allen $11 million to play X receiver? What happens with when Brandon Ayuk comes back? What kind of role does Keenan Allen play? Are you able to work him in and still get Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall their touches? Can you still develop Jacob Cowing? I think those are some question marks and something that the 49ers have to decide. And so Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Cooper is a great fit. The 49ers were interested in bringing in Amari Cooper last season. They were interested in drafting him. So we know there's real interest in the 49ers with Amari Cooper. But is there interest at $18 million or $19 million per season? And I know that's just the market value that is being projected by Spotrac and others. But I think that that's a concern, because I don't think the 49ers are willing to pay big money for a guy that's going to step in, early on in the season. They probably think they can get it out of Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. And, I think it would be a little bit easier if Demarcus Robinson wasn't going to be suspended. But we do know the 49ers have interest in tinkering this roster. A simple look at what they did bringing Gabe Davis in. It was so crazy, right? Gabe Davis gets released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. John Feliciano says, hey, that would be a great fit for the 49ers. And within, 24 hours, the 49ers are setting up a meeting to meet with Gabe Davis. He comes in and he meets with the 49ers, and my guess is they looked at his medical. They wanted to see where he was at. They wanted to get an idea of what he looked like physically, and then they wanted to talk some numbers and see where he was at financially, because he did have a huge contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars where he was making $13 million per year. Now, he's only 26 years old, but what is his money going to look like? I think that's the thing. The 49ers would love to get another X receiver that they could count on, so that way they could move Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall around, have them play the slot, have them play Z. Sometimes they could play X. So they would like that. So Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, like those dudes make sense. But financially, I don't know if the 49ers are going to be willing to pay up that much unless those guys bring their money significantly down. So then it comes down to, what about guys like Gabe Davis, which I think is more realistic? Maybe a player like Nelson Aguilar or Tyler Boyd. Those could be guys that the 49ers potentially look at as they look for some guys who are a little bit cheaper options who you can bring in to come in and help. And maybe the 49ers feel the answer is already there. But I don't think they're done tweaking. I think they're going to continue to look at certain roster positions. And I think wide receiver is one of them when you look at certain positions. The other position I don't think that they are done with, that they could still make a move, is offensive tackle. I still believe that if they could come to an agreement with DJ Humphries, that could still happen. I don't think that's, an imminent thing, but I do believe that they could be interested there. I don't believe that there's many options when it comes to tight end, which would be a position that I would love for the 49ers to be able to address. We know they addressed it with Ross Dwelley, but there are still really good tight ends available that I think the 49ers could get pretty cheap, that they might be interested in potentially bringing in. And so maybe they're not done at tight end. Last year, they kept fooling around with the idea of bringing in another veteran tight end, and it just wasn't working. But when you still got guys out there like Hayden Hurst, who is still super cheap, you got, a guy like CJ Uzomah, who's still available out there, a Gerald Everett. These guys are still available. Now, Everett's going to cost a little bit more money. We know that. But, there's veterans out there that could possibly help you when it comes to, catching the football. And I think you still need that element to your game. So 49ers still making moves. They bring in a new punter. They move on from Mitch Wishnowsky. They bring in a new linebacker, and they move on from DaShaun White. They are continuing to tinker this roster. They are not done. There will be more moves. Are they going to be big, impactful moves? We don't know. Are these going to be moves that help special teams, which help a 30-year game? Absolutely. So it was a lot of fun to see the 49ers making moves. And, I hope Mitch Wishnowsky is able to keep punting and has a good career, because he was a good 49er. We really liked Mitch Wishnowsky in San Francisco. So wishing him the best of luck in, his future endeavors in the NFL. And hopefully it goes well. And for the 49ers to get a young stud linebacker, let's see what he can develop into in Chazz Surratt, yet a little bit older. Same with Thomas Morstead, but we'll see what happens. 49ers making changes. Let me know about the 49ers changes in the comment section. And do you think the 49ers are done tinkering with their roster? Are there still moves to make? Let me know, because I'm really curious. And if I'm missing a player that the 49ers could be in on, let me know in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Pods, wherever you listen to your podcast, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.